Welcome to the Emancipated Mind Show. My name is Anneshia Freeman. I'm also known as the locksmith because I make keys for locks in the mind. I'm an award-winning master-level therapist, and I also have an MBA. I'm the creator of a cognitive restructuring program entitled The Lies That Bind. This show exposes and challenges dysfunctional, unconscious beliefs that cause people to engage in self-defeating behaviors repeatedly, despite the consequences. This show is streamed live via Facebook and YouTube every Thursday from 7 o'clock p.m. to 7:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, welcome to the Emancipated Mind Show. Hello, everyone. My name is Anneshia Freeman. I'm also known as the locksmith because I make keys for locks in the mind. Welcome to episode 12 of the Emancipated Mind Show. This is a show that exposes and addresses the root causes of many problems in people's lives. Problems such as self-sabotage, procrastination, people-pleasing, dysfunctional relationships, perfectionisms, addiction, low self-esteem, and codependency. Tonight, the topic is codependency. So I'm going to talk about codependency from the perspective of both parties who are involved. So a little more information. I gave a little information about myself in the introduction, but I'm going to give a little more information for people who may be just tuning in, who didn't see the introduction. My name again is Anneshia Freeman. I'm a master's level therapist, meaning I have a master's in social work. I also have a master's in business administration. I'm a person in long-term recovery. And what that means is I have not used any drugs or alcohol in over 22 years. I'm also a person in long-term recovery from trauma and toxic, dysfunctional relationships. So when I'm speaking, during some of these Facebook Live episodes about dysfunctional relationships and codependency, I'm not only speaking from the perspective of a master's level therapist, I'm also speaking from the perspective of a person who have struggled with these types of problems. So I'm going to talk first about the definition. I'm going to give the definition of codependency. I'm going to talk about some common behaviors that are in those types of relationships. I'm going to expose dysfunctional, unconscious beliefs that produce those behaviors. I'm talking about the root causes of codependent relationships. Then I'm going to read functional beliefs that challenge the dysfunctional beliefs that produce codependent relationships. So tonight I'm going to talk about 5 signs that a person may be in a codependent relationship. So let's start with the definition. So a codependent relationship is a kind of dysfunctional relationship where one person is a caretaker and the other person takes advantage of the person who is the caretaker. Now, these types of relationships are very common and when people have drug and alcohol addictions, but that's not always the case. There can be codependency in relationships where neither party uses drugs and alcohol, but it's very common in relationships where people struggle with addiction. So I'm going to talk about those 5 signs that people are in a codependent relationship. And then I'm going to talk about the belief. So for each behavior, I'm going to expose and challenge 2 dysfunctional, unconscious beliefs that produce those behaviors. Now, whenever you hear me use the terms issues, unaddressed issues, lies, and the buttons people push, as I use those terms interchangeably, I'm talking about the same thing. I'm talking about dysfunctional, unconscious beliefs that cause people to engage in self-defeating behaviors repeatedly, despite the consequences. So the first sign that I'm going to talk about with regards to codependent relationships is people pleasing. So people who are codependent, whether you're talking about I'm talking about the person who is the caretaker, they struggle with people pleasing. They believe that there's a difference. Now, there is a difference between caring for a person, doing nice things for a person, and struggling with people pleasing. But people who struggle with people pleasing, they believe that it is necessary, like their goal in life is to make other people happy. They have a fear of someone being mad at them or displeasing someone. And so I've selected a dysfunctional unconscious belief that produces the caretaker role, that people pleasing aspect of codependent relationships. So first, I'm going to talk about the victim-based belief that produces people pleasing behavior in a codependent relationship. Then I'm going to expose the villain-based belief that causes the other party to take advantage of the person who has the people-pleasing tendencies. So one dysfunctional, and there's lots of dysfunctional unconscious beliefs under the umbrella of people-pleasing, but just for time's sake, I'm going to talk about one. So one of the beliefs that causes people-pleasing behaviors is your goal in life should be to make people happy, especially or even people who treat you like dirt. So this is actually one of the dysfunctional unconscious beliefs from my set of 100 victim-based, commonly seen victim-based beliefs. So this is an unconscious belief. People who struggle with this belief, they wouldn't walk into a room and say, hello, I believe that my goal in life should be to make people happy, even people who treat me poorly, who treat me like dirt. It's an unconscious belief, but it causes people-pleasing behaviors. So the person who's involved in the relationship, who's taking advantage of the person who has this issue, they often struggle with this particular villain-based belief. Now, they may struggle with a lot of them. They cause them to, take advantage of people and misuse people. But here's the opposite belief. See, there's for every victim-based belief, there's a villain-based belief counterpart. So many of those individuals who take advantage of people who have people-pleasing behaviors, they struggle with the belief or the lie. People's goal in life should be to make you happy, even the people that you mistreat, even the people that you treat like dirt. It happens a lot. And so even though these beliefs are unconscious, once people become aware of them, they start recognizing the behaviors produced by the beliefs. You can see them. Oh, so you actually believe people should go through all sorts of antics trying to make you happy, even if you're mistreating them. And if they don't, then they're doing something wrong. But the people who are codependent, they suffer with this particular belief. So now I'm going to read the functional belief that challenges both. So let's start with the victim belief. Your goal in life should be to make people happy, even people who treat you poorly or who treat you like dirt. The functional belief says your goal in life should be to live the best life that you can during the short time you have on earth. There are a lot of goals you should and could have in life, but trying to please cold, callous, manipulative, self-centered people is not one of them. Trying to please everyone is a surefire recipe for failure. But it becomes self-destructive when you pick people who shouldn't be in your life at all as the objects of your drive to please. People who abuse are abusive because the recipients of the abuse, if they are adults, have signed a permission slip granting consent for such maltreatment. The permission slip is the acceptance of the abuse. Please tear up any and all such agreements. You don't have to accept abuse from anyone, and you certainly don't have to go around worrying if abusive people are happy or not. Now, I always make this point whenever I'm talking about any dysfunctional unconscious beliefs that, are involved in dysfunctional relationships, abusive relationships. If you're listening to this Facebook Live series, if you're watching on YouTube and you are identifying that you are in a codependent relationship and that you struggle with this dysfunctional unconscious belief, please do not go get the person who's being abusive to you and tell them that you saw a Facebook Live series and what they should stop doing. It may not go well for you. Consult professional help. There's a lot of professional programs and agencies that you can call and contact who will help you safely exit an abusive relationship. So now I'm going to read the dysfunctional unconscious, the functional belief that challenges the dysfunctional unconscious belief that the other party often struggles with in a codependent relationship. I'm talking about the person who takes advantage of the person who struggles with caretaking behaviors. People should have goals in life, but one of them should not be to make you happy. Your happiness is your personal responsibility. It's up to you to ensure that your life is fulfilling and rewarding. Others have to do the same for their lives. It's an unrealistic expectation on your part to believe that there are human beings put on this earth whose purpose for existing is to make you happy. That doesn't even sound right to you, does it? It gets to be even more problematic or ridiculous for you to expect people you mistreat to jump through hoops trying to ensure your happiness. Your job is to establish your own life and find out what elements need to be in your life to produce the happiness you desire. You will be frustrated waiting on someone else to do that for you. You will also continue to attract victims and repel healthy people if you don't get this distorted belief out of your mindset files. So those are the two beliefs, the caretaker belief in a codependent relationship and the person who's on the receiving end who takes advantage of the person. These are the two beliefs under the umbrella of people pleasing in a codependent relationship. So I'm going to talk about another sign that a person is in a codependent relationship: poor boundaries. And in many cases, absolutely no boundaries. So people who struggle with codependent relationships, they have problems recognizing and establishing and respecting boundaries, because the person who's on the caretaker role, who's in the caretaker role, they have dysfunctional unconscious beliefs that tell them they don't have a right to set boundaries, even once they learn. Now, some people have never been taught how to set and enforce boundaries, but it's very simple. I have a handout that I share with people that I work with that tells them step by step how to set a boundary and what to do if somebody violates it. So they could follow those steps. But people, even once they learn the process, they struggle because of those dysfunctional unconscious beliefs that tell them you don't have a right to set a boundary. And this is very common in codependent relationships. No boundaries or very poor boundaries. And so I'm going to read a victim-based belief that causes people to be afraid to set boundaries in a codependent relationship. And then I'm going to read the villain-based belief that tells the person who is the other party in the relationship that people don't have a right to set boundaries with them. So the belief is, the victim-based belief is, you are at the mercy of other people's decisions. That belief tells people it doesn't matter what's going on. You have to accept the other person in the relationship's decision, no matter how it affects you. And that's very common in when there's a codependent relationship and addictions are involved. So I'm going to read the functional belief that challenges this lie that you're at the mercy of other people's decisions. I am at the mercy of other people's decisions if I allow myself to be. I am an adult more than capable of calling cut on any scene in my life that is not conducive to my mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, or financial well-being. When I was a child, I may have been at the mercy of the decisions of the adults in my life. And as a child, it's not may, you were. As a child, this belief was true. You were at the mercy of other people's decisions in your childhood. But at some point in the developmental process, when you, as a child, develops and mature, it's up to the parent. But a lot of parents don't have this information. So this is not condemnation for parents who don't understand how the unconscious mind works and how to help their children become self-sufficient and mature properly into healthy adults. A lot of parents have not been taught that. They need to. It needs to be a part of parenting classes. But so when a child starts, crossing over into young adulthood, as they start getting older, it's up to the parent to reset this belief. You are at the mercy of other people's decisions from true to false. And that's done via logical consequences, meaning that when a child makes a decision that goes against what they have been taught to do that is proper, then they need to have consequences, logical consequences that they experience. And then the parent needs to explain to the child, this consequence that you have, the fact that you're on punishment, that you're grounded or whatever, is because of a decision you made. Because a lot of times the child will still think, oh, I'm at the mercy of my parents' decision. That's, I got in trouble and I'm at the mercy of their decision to be grounded for 2 weeks. No, you're at the mercy of your decision to break a rule and you have the consequence because of that. So that's resetting it. I just wanted to make that point. So I'm going to reread that sentence. When I was a child, I was at the mercy of the decisions of the adults in my life. That was then, this is now. I will take charge of my life and my personal responsibilities. If I don't, then I am signing a contract with others saying that I am giving them control of my life and well-being, and I will humbly accept whatever decisions they make. Once I internalize that I am not at the mercy of other people's decisions, I will be amazed at all the creative energy I possess to maneuver obstacles put in my road by others. A decision not to make a decision is a decision. I can decide to position myself so that the negative actions of others do not affect me. So a lot of people who struggle with not setting and enforcing boundaries in codependent relationships, they struggle with this dysfunctional unconscious belief. You are at the mercy of other people's decisions, and they need to be introduced to a more functional belief so that they can make some changes. But there's another person involved in the codependent relationship who struggles with their own dysfunctional unconscious belief. People are at the mercy of your decision. So they will get indignant if this person challenges anything they do. And they can be making all sorts of decisions that's having a negative impact on the other person in the relationship. But this unconscious belief says, I have a right to do that. And this belief is just as unconscious as the victim belief. The villain beliefs are just as unconscious as the victim beliefs. And so even in my set, there's a set of 100 most commonly seen villain lies. It's easy to feel compassion for the person who struggles with the victim lies, but a lot of times it's hard to feel compassion and understanding for people who struggle with villain lies. And you can have compassion and understanding and still set boundaries and enforce boundaries with people. So I'm going to read the functional belief that challenges the lie. People are at the mercy of your decisions. People have the right to protect themselves from the consequences of any decision you make that affects them directly and or indirectly. Meaning, if you ping people, don't get indignant when you get ponged, like ping and pong. A lot of people who struggle with villain-based beliefs, they go around pinging people and then they get indignant when somebody pongs. And I tell them, if you got a problem with the pong, thou shalt not ping. But these unconscious beliefs tell them that they can do that. It's arrogance at its worst for you to believe you have the right to make decisions that negatively impact the lives of others without thinking that decision through. You also have an obligation to inform others of any decision you are about to make if that decision has the ability to impact them in any way. How would you feel if your boss decided to close the company down on a certain day without informing you until after he or she closed the company? You must start thinking about your actions and the possible impact your actions can have on others. That's called being sensitive, considerate, insightful, and respectful. Those are things you expect from others. Give what you expect. So those are two unconscious beliefs that produce the no boundaries or poor boundaries behavior in codependent relationships. So another sign that a person is in a codependent relationship, another aspect of those types of relationships, is poor self-esteem. And a lot of people may think that the poor self-esteem is just the person who's the caretaker. And I don't even like that term because it's not positive. You're not really being a caretaker, but that's the name that they commonly refer to that role, as in codependent relationships. But I would call it that it is the doormat role or something like that, because you don't want to give it a positive name, because there are positive caretaker roles for children and for elderly or differently abled people. And so, but that's the term that's commonly used in the definition. So I'll stick with that tonight. So both parties, the caretaker role and the person who's taking advantage of the person in the caretaking role in a codependent relationship, they both suffer with low self-esteem. And so one person needs the approval of the other, and the other person is dependent on someone else to meet their needs. So both parties are struggling with low self-esteem, even if the person who's taking advantage of the caretaker, the person in the caretaker role, they may go around bragging that they're manipulating this person or whatever, but they really have low self-esteem because they have to engage because of life. And the way they have to move around life, they're going to encounter other people who take care of themselves, who have the ability to pay all of their bills, to do whatever they need to do. And they're not doing that. They're dependent on someone else to do that for them. So they're affected when they see that. And not only do they see it in real life when they're engaging with other responsible people, but they see it on television shows, they see it in movies. So it affects them. They may sit there and act like it doesn't, but it does. So both parties are struggling with low self-esteem in codependent relationships. So I'm going to talk about two beliefs that can fall under the umbrella of low self-esteem. There's lots of dysfunctional unconscious beliefs, but I'm going to talk about two. So one of them is you have to assume the responsibilities of others. That's a very common dysfunctional unconscious belief that generates the caretaker role in a codependent relationship. And the people who's on the receiving end of that, they often struggle with the lie, expect others to do for you what you will not do for yourself, and get angry and resentful when they won't. In fact, all of these beliefs collaborate, and a person can have some beliefs within themselves that collaborate, but a dysfunctional belief in one person can collaborate with a dysfunctional belief in another person. And you see that here. You have to assume the responsibilities of others, collaborates with the other person's belief or issue, expect others to do for you what you will not do for yourself, and get angry and resentful when they won't. So now I'm going to read the functional belief that challenges both of these. So let's start with the functional belief that challenges the lie. You have to assume the responsibilities of others. I have to assume the responsibilities of others only if I tell myself that I have to do so. People are doing what I allow them to do in my life. If I choose to let people push their responsibilities off on me, then that is what they will do. If I begin setting boundaries where I end and they begin, then they will have no choice but to respect them. They may not like it, and they may try to challenge me at first, But when I consistently refuse to take on their responsibilities, they will get the picture and eventually they will go find easier prey, or they will get themselves together. They will learn how to do what they should do for themselves. It may take me some time to realize what my responsibilities are and what they are not, but I am learning and I am figuring it out little by little. As I learn, I will begin erasing the items off my list that I discover belong to someone else. I will no longer handicap others from learning self sufficiency by assuming their responsibilities. That is a terrible thing to do to another person. That's hindering, not helping. So now I see I have a comment here. So I'm going to click over and look at the comments. Welcome to the people. So I'm going to answer this question. I have a question. It says, do you think that folks in these types of codependent relationships can switch roles at times, where sometimes a person is the caretaker and then switches to the role of the receiver of the care? Yes, that can happen. That can happen because a lot of times you have people who are what I call in my program, the lies that bind, VV ambidextrous, meaning that they can operate out of a victim lie at 9 o'clock and switch to a villain lie at 9:02. And it can happen the opposite way. A person can operate out of a villain lie at 9 o'clock and switch to a victim lie at 9:02. Now, that doesn't always happen. I've been doing this work for over 20 years, and I've worked with a lot of people who struggle with victim-based beliefs primarily. And I've worked with people who struggle with villain-based beliefs primarily. I mean, they never come out of villain mode, right? But then there's people who can switch back and forth. So the answer is yes. There are people who in the codependent relationships can switch roles. They can switch roles back and forth. They absolutely can. So now I'm going to read the functional belief that challenges the dysfunctional belief. Expect others to do for you what you will not do for yourself and get angry and resentful when they won't. I am an adult. It is my responsibility to make the decisions for my life that will result in the type of life that I dream of having. For too long, I have turned my decision-making power over to others, and I have had to live with whatever decisions they chose to make for me. I have at times acted like a helpless child, incapable of taking care of myself and assuming my personal responsibilities. I have gotten angry at strong people who would not do for me what I can do for myself. Or I have picked unhealthy people who assume my duties with all sorts of awful strings attached. Cut, like a director calls cut on a movie scene that's not going correctly. I am an adult, perfectly capable of doing the things I am expecting other adults to do for me. I will take control of my life and learn how to be responsible. If they learned how to do the things I need done, then so can I. It can't be that hard. And it's not. It is not that hard. But a lot of people have never been given an opportunity to develop their self-sufficiency muscles because they've been in codependent relationships with people who do for them what they should do for themselves. So another sign of a codependent relationship is caretaking, what I've been talking about since this episode started. A sign of codependency is when you feel like you have to take care of everyone. And for a lot of people, this starts early in childhood. Most of these beliefs are programmed into people's minds during the formative years. The brain is developed, the mind is programmed. The mind is programmed during the formative years by how a person is treated and by what a person observes. Now, there's always exceptions to the rule, but in most cases, these beliefs, these dysfunctional unconscious beliefs that produce codependent relationships are programmed into people's minds during the formative years. So some beliefs that cause a person to operate in the codependent relationship, there's a lot of them, but I'll just talk about one for time's sake. One of the beliefs is your needs are not important, because people who are in the caretaker role in codependent relationships, they make sure everyone else is okay. They prioritize the needs of others, especially the person who's they are in the codependent relationship with. They will prioritize that person's needs over their needs. They make decisions without taking their needs into consideration. And so the person who's on the receiving end of this so-called care is they have their own dysfunctional unconscious beliefs. And one of them is the needs of others are not important. They actually believe that the person they're in a relationship with, their needs are irrelevant. It's irrelevant. See how these beliefs collaborate in the relationship, in the codependent relationship. So now I'm going to read the functional beliefs that challenge both the victim belief that the caretaker, the person in the caretaker role struggles with, and I'm going to read the functional belief that challenges the villain-based belief that the other party who's taking advantage of the person in the caretaker role, their unconscious belief. I'm going to read it. I'm going to read the functional beliefs that challenge both. So let's start with the victim belief: your needs are not important. My needs are as important as I make them. If I continue to place the needs of others above my own needs, then I will continue to suffer lack and harbor resentments. All of my needs are important. My mental needs, my emotional needs, my spiritual needs, my physical needs, and my financial needs. And it is my responsibility to make sure that they are met. If I continue to neglect myself and cater to others, I am doing them a disservice because I can't offer people my best when I'm frustrated from my own lack. In fact, I may be unconsciously trying to buy love, buy quotation mark, buy love and acceptance by neglecting my own needs, hoping that someone will stop me and tell me I don't have to do that anymore. Good luck. It's my personal responsibility to practice good self-care. It's my job. I accept this obligation and I will do it well. So now I'm going to read the functional belief. Well, I have a question. I think I have a question. So let me check my comments here. So I have a question. Enid says, do you think people can be in codependent relationships with systems? Absolutely. And what she said, what's the difference between the brain and the mind? And so I'll answer the first question. Do you think people can be in a codependent relationship with a system? Absolutely. But it's still people involved in running those systems. So you still have dysfunctional beliefs on the part of the individuals in this who are part of the system and people who are dependent on the system. Now, everyone who works for the system, because I work for the human service industry, that's considered, under the umbrella of a system. And so I don't struggle with being, a care provider in the negative context with people. Like the people who I work with as clients, they learn self-sufficiency, working with me. I help them. Like I've given this example before, when I've done one of my Facebook Live series, that when I was contracting with the court system and working with court mandated clients, the probation officers would give people, that they were referring to me, my phone number, so they could call and schedule their intake appointment. And a lot of them, I would give them an appointment for the following week. And they would be like, well, Miss Freeman, that's next week. Can you call me and remind me of my appointment? And I would say, absolutely not. And I would let that pregnant pause, silence, linger in the air. And I said, what I will do is I will hold on while you go get a piece of paper and a pen and write down your appointment for next week, because I believe you have the ability to do things that I do. And I write my appointments down. I either write them down or I put them into my calendar on my phone. And I believe you can do that. I believe you can. I said you should be suspicious of anyone who will do anything for you that you can do for yourself, because they are not trying to help you. They are making you dependent on them. And I don't work like that. And so, yeah, but there are people, and this is not a character assassination attempt on some of the people who will do stuff like that for their clients who work for certain systems. They have dysfunctional unconscious beliefs that they have been programmed to believe. Some people who work in certain industries have been programmed to believe that certain people are not as capable as other people. That's an unconscious belief. They have some conscious aspects of that belief, but a lot of it is unconscious. So they intuitively believe that they should be doing things for people that they can do for themselves instead of teaching those people, like giving people fish instead of teaching them how to fish. And symptom treatment is important. And so if you're working with people who don't have certain resources and they have basic needs that need to be met, of course, give them fish. They can't even learn anything if they're hungry. Of course, give them fish. But while they're eating, teach them how to fish. Or after they get through eating, teach them how to fish. So yes, Enid, a person can be in a codependent relationship with a system, but remember, systems are ran by people. So the codependent relationships are still between systems, right? And I mean between people, because people run systems. But everyone in the system doesn't struggle. There are a lot of people who work for various systems, whether you're talking about the criminal justice field, the counseling field, the education field. There are a lot of people who don't struggle with codependency. They will help a person stand on their own 2 feet. They're very good about helping people learn how to stand on their own 2 feet. So what's the difference between the brain and the mind? Well, I recommend a particular book, but I don't want to get in trouble because I know they got all these strict rules about you can't say certain stuff if you're not associated with the book or the person. So there are a lot of books that will break down the difference between the brain and the mind. And so the brain, the brain is your brain. It's the right brain, the left brain. And there's different things that the right brain does, and there's different things that the left brain does. And so, but your mind is the way you think. It's in the brain, it's a part of the brain, but it's the way you think. Your brain does a lot of things, a lot of different things, but your mind is how you're going to think. Okay, so I hope that answered your questions adequately. I hope so. And so now I'm going to read the functional belief that challenges the dysfunctional belief, the needs of others are not important. This is the villain-based belief involved in the caretaking aspect of codependent relationships. I already talked about the villain belief, my needs are not important or your needs are not important. Here's the belief that a lot of people on the receiving end of the caretaking struggle with. Your needs are important, and so are the needs of others. Your need to be treated with dignity and respect is important. Other people's need to be treated with dignity and respect is important too. TOO. Also, your need for privacy and space is important. Other people's need for privacy and space is important too. You need to earn a livable wage and have a fulfilling career. Your need, rather, to earn a livable wage and have a fulfilling career is important. Other people's need to earn a livable wage and have a fulfilling career is important too. TOO. Get the point? Your needs are important, and so are the needs of others. You cannot go around making sure your needs are met at the expense of other people getting their needs met. That's villainous thinking. Healthy people will remove themselves from you with no hesitation once they discover you have these narcissistic traits. Because narcissistic traits they're just supported by beliefs. And most of them are in this red stack, the villain-based beliefs. It may appear that you are getting your needs met when surrounded by people who struggle with victim-based beliefs, but 2 very important needs are not being met: the self-respect need and the need to engage with people you respect. Those 2 needs are not being met. So I see we have another question or a comment. Yes. Okay. All right. Thanks, Enid. So I have one more symptom that I'm going to talk about, or sign that I'm going to talk about that alerts people that they are in a codependent relationship is passive, aggressive, or submissive communication. So codependent relationships, people who struggle with dysfunctional unconscious beliefs that produce codependent relationships, it makes it hard for them to communicate assertively, to say what they want, say what they need. It's very hard for them to do that because of the dysfunctional unconscious beliefs that produce the caretaking role in a codependent relationship. So one of those beliefs is don't make waves. I call this belief the internal mute button. A lot of people struggle with this belief. They want to speak up. They need to challenge things. They need to set boundaries. They need to articulate what they want, what they need. But this belief tells them you don't have a right to do that. You can't say anything. You have to accept whatever behavior the other person is displaying, no matter how it affects you. And then you have the person who's taking advantage of the individual who has this belief or this lie, this issue. They struggle with their own dysfunctional unconscious belief. Other people are not allowed to make waves no matter what is going on. Both of these beliefs are unconscious. This belief is unconscious. This belief is unconscious. So I'm going to read the functional belief that challenges both of them. Let's start with the don't make waves lie. It is, if there is a problem or situation that is causing me tribulations or making my life uncomfortable, then I owe it to myself to speak up. I do not have to be afraid to speak up because it will make others uncomfortable or cause them to have to look at how they are behaving. If there is something that I feel is out of order or that is hurting me, I have an obligation to myself to address that issue. I can use wisdom in how I address it, but it needs to be addressed. And I mentioned earlier, and I always do when I'm talking about abusive relationships, if you are in a abusive relationship, do not try to go speak up to that person who physically hurts you. Call an agency or a program. You can Google it. Google abusive relationships, Google domestic violence relationships, and a lot of agency numbers will pop up who can help you safely escape. This is something that you can say to yourself, if you're in that type of relationship. But a lot of times it's not to that degree. You're in a relationship, a codependent relationship, where you can actually speak up and not have a fear that you're going to be physically attacked or harmed. If I'm not sure how to handle a situation with diplomacy, then I can ask for input from others. There are some situations that are so out of order, I can skip the diplomacy and get straight to the point. My happiness and well-being depends on my willingness to confront situations and people when necessary. I will develop that skill. It is my responsibility. So now I'm going to read the functional belief that challenges the dysfunctional belief. Other people are not allowed to make waves no matter what is going on. People have a right to make a wave about anything that is going on that is harming them in any fashion. There are usually two types of people who get upset when others make waves. First, you have the bullies who think they can do anything they want no matter how it impacts others and feel as if they should never be confronted about what they do. Second, you have individuals who suffer with the don't make waves issue who feel as if others should suffer in silence too. They feel as if the person making waves is going to ignite a bully and they don't want to be around when the trouble starts. In reality, bullies need to be confronted so they can stop bullying. Bullies need some dig this here. So that's a term that's often used in certain subcultures. The don't make waves need to watch. The don't make wavers, the people who struggle with this lie, they need to watch people who don't have a problem making waves or speaking up and take notes. People have a right and an obligation to themselves to challenge injustice, maltreatment, and oppression. So I see I have another comment. Oh, thank you. Serena says another great session. Thank you. So that's all for this session, episode 12 of the Emancipated Mind Show. The topic tonight was codependent relationships. If you would like more information about my work, I will put my website, the link to my website, into the comment section. If you would like to order some of my material, I'll also put the link to my store page. You can order the workbook that comes with both sets of these my cognitive restructuring cards on my website. And I also have other workbooks and audios that you can purchase that can help you if you struggle with these issues that I talk about on my show, or if you are in relationships with people. They make good Christmas gifts if you are in relationships with people who need help. So I'll see you back here hopefully next Thursday. Take care and enjoy your evening. Thank you for watching the Emancipated Mind Show. Join me every week live on Facebook and YouTube on Thursdays from 7 o'clock p.m. to 7:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For more information about my products and services, feel free to visit my website, AnnesiaConsulting.com, or my website, AnnesiaSpeaks.com. I can also be reached via email at afreeman@AnnesiaConsulting.com. I'll see you next week.